So it's not a big secret that the tech market has been really rough lately. But before you go and blame AI for stealing all the jobs, think again. This is not just a tech problem. It's an everything problem. After 25 years building software and leading tech teams, this isn't my first rodeo. And I'm watching the most sustained economic squeeze I've seen in 25 years. Jobless claims are spiking across every industry. Interest rates have been hammering businesses at levels we haven't seen since the early 2000s. And companies have been bleeding engineering talent for 3 straight years. But here's the twist that nobody's talking about. Congress just passed something called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and while this isn't a political post, I'm not going to be for or against a political party or anybody or anything, but this could actually help turn things around, and I'm going to talk about why. So the question is, will HR 1 be the lifeline that can bring tech jobs coming back, or is this just another political band-aid on a deeper economic wound? So today I'm going to break down exactly what this bill does, why the timing matters, and whether you should be dusting off that resume or bracing for more pain. So let's dive into this topic today. Welcome to StartupHakk. I'm Spencer, and here at StartupHakk, we train software developers and build custom software solutions for companies. With a decade of executive leadership as a fractional CTO and 25 years in software development, I've mastered transforming tech teams and products. All right, so again, I'm not making this a political post. I'm not taking sides. This isn't meant to be a political post. I'm on one side, and that's the software developers who want to see a strong job economy come back. So politicians love naming bills like they're marketing luxury resorts, and apparently someone in Congress thought One Big Beautiful Bill was a perfect name to save the tech industry. So meanwhile, software engineers are updating their LinkedIn profiles faster than they used to deploy code, and companies are treating hiring like it's some kind of rare endangered species that they can't afford. Now, interest rates have been higher than a startup's valuation expectations, and after 25 years in business, I can tell you this economic squeeze feels different. So we're going to dive into whether this beautiful piece of legislation will actually bring back tech jobs, or if we're just wishfully thinking our way along some other political theater. So let's dive into one of these articles here. So more Americans are staying jobless for longer. So this is the highest level since 2021. So we can see that the highest, this is the last time that the continued claims were this high was November 2021, when they were still climbing down from the historic pandemic rates, right? So we saw it coming down from the pandemic, and this is when we saw this huge job spike from pandemics, and then we've seen it just steadily increase the jobless rates, right? Now, and so more Americans are staying jobless for longer, and that's what this article is all about, right? So, for the latest Conference Board survey, the share of consumer viewing jobs as plentiful fell to a 4-year low, and it's not just a hunch either. The June report from Indeed Hiring Lab showed that monthly job gains in the U.S. have consistently lagged behind 2019 average for the past 3 months now. So we're definitely seeing jobless rates at a higher rate than we've seen in a long time, right? So the unemployment data definitely is spiking, and continued jobless claims hit 1.97 million for the week ending June 14th, and this is the highest level in more than 3.5 years. So more Americans are out of work longer as employers hold back on both hiring and firing, meaning people are staying unemployed longer even though initial layoffs remain stable. So employers are holding off onto existing staff while dramatically slowing new hiring. So more Americans are out of work longer as employers hold back on both hiring and firing. So it's a labor market freeze driven by caution, not confidence. So only 52% of sectors are hiring above pre-pandemic levels right now, down from 75% in early 2024. More Americans are just being out of this work longer, right? So consumer spending dipped for a second consecutive month in May, while retail sales posted their sharpest monthly drop in 2 years. Now, economics across the board right now are really uncertain. More Americans are out of work longer as Americans hold back on both hiring and firing. So if you add the interest rates together and average it out over the last 3 years, we have not had this high of an interest rate for over 25 years. So based on the data from 2000 to present, so the last 25 years, just a little over 25 years, the current sustained high interest rate period is unprecedented in this time frame. So let's kind of break this down here, right? And I'm going to bring up a chart here that we've got here. So This is the current Fed interest rate. I'm going to get my head out of the way here. This is the current Fed interest rate that we see from from 2000 to 2025. So this is 25 years of the Fed policy, right? This is the highest sustained rate we have seen in the last 25 years. Fed, we saw a high 6% coming into 2000, right? And this was coming off of the dot-com bubble burst, right? And so as the dot-com bubble burst, we saw interest rates drop really fast. Now we saw them slowly creep up, and that's one of the differences here is right before the 2008 pandemic, we saw interest rates slowly creep up over that time, right? And we saw these interest rates come up, but it was only for a very, very short amount of time, less than a year, that we saw them anywhere near this level of rates. What we see here is we see a really fast sharp. So from zero, from near zero, and this was a lot of the, so we saw this creeping back up, pre-pandemic, and then we saw the crash for the pandemic where Feds cut rates to try to keep the market alive. And then we saw the sharp increase because of all of the spending that had happened. We see the sharp increase of this. And so we never saw this sharp of an increase. So this is a huge jump in interest rates in a short amount of time. And then we've not seen them sustain this high as we've seen them for the last 25 years. So this is the longest period of time that we've seen them this high. This represents about 3 years of elevated rates, roughly 3 to 4% across the period, across this rise. So in 2008 to 2022, there was 14 consecutive years of historically low rates, right? And so even here, when we saw this little bit of a blip, these were still historically low rates, right? And so this allowed tech to boom over the last 14 years. And I think everybody got really used to how we could spend. And this is where we saw the emergence of a lot of really big tech companies over these 14 years. And so this near zero allowed allowed companies to grow at an unprecedented rate. Now, the increases were more gradual in the past when they've happened too. So the bottom line is that from 2022 to 2025, periods represent the most aggressive and sustained monetary tightening cycle in 25 years. While peak rates briefly touched similar levels in 2006 and 2007, the speed of the increase and the sustained duration of these levels is unprecedented since into the 90s. Now, a lot has changed in tech since the 90s, right? We've seen a lot of change in globalization since the 90s. But so the last time we had anything close to this kind of sustained high-level rate environment was the very beginning of the 25-year period in 2000 and 2001. And even then, we've seen a lot change since then. Since then, we've had 2011, right? This was pre-2011. The internet was not what it is today. So globalization was very different. Now, we're going to dive into the One Big Beautiful Act here, or H.R. 1, and see if this could help us. So the Senate did pass the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the H.R. 1, on July 1st by a narrow 51 to 50 margin, with Vice President J.D. Vance casting the tie-breaking vote. And again, I'm not getting into the politics of this. I want to talk about the developers and what this means. Will this solve the problem of Section 174 of the tax code? So let's go back and do a little bit of history review on this. A buried provision in the 2017 Tax Cuts and Job Acts quietly rewired how American companies invest in R&D, contributing to the loss of hundreds of thousands of high-paying, white-collar tech jobs, and most software developers have no idea this tax change even existed. So before 2022, for almost 70 years, American companies could deduct 100% of qualified research and development, or R&D, spending in the year they incurred the cost: salaries, software, contract payments. If it contributed to creating an improved or improving a product, it came off the top of the firm's taxable income. After 2022, the delayed changes to Section 174 from immediately expensing R&D to mandatory amortization, meaning that companies must spread the deduction out in smaller chunks over 5 or even 15 years period, went into effect after 2022. This is why we started to see these huge layoffs in 2023. So to understand the impact, imagine a personal tax code change that allowed you to deduct 100% of your biggest source of expenses, and that became just 20% deduction after 2022. For cash-strapped companies, especially those not yet profitable, the result was a painful tax bill just as venture funding dried up and interest rates started to soar. So let's go back to our graph over here again, right? So if we look at our graph again here, and I get my fat head out of the way, we see right in 2022, at the same time that we see interest rates go up, we also see the inability for these companies to be able to deduce 100% of some of their largest tax cost, right? Before, up until here, across these years when interest rates were low, and when they could write off the R&D tax credit and had been able to write off all R&D research or any development, right? Any software development since the dot-com bubble, everybody's been writing this off. Suddenly in 2022, we have a spike of interest rates. We have the 174 where they can now only deduce 20% or reduce 20, write off 20% of these deductions. And we see all of this combined at the same time. That's where we've seen this perfect storm of a tough tech environment right now. So hiring software developers became dramatically more expensive from a tax perspective, not to mention a cost expense because money was more expensive. And this made layoffs the most logical financial decisions. So it's no coincidence that Meta announced its year of efficiency immediately after the Section 174 change took effect. And that's the same thing for Microsoft laying off 10,000 employees in January 2023, despite strong earnings, or Google's parent company, Alphabet, cutting 12,000 jobs around the same time. So Meta cut its total workforce by almost 25% between the first and second years of that Section 174 change began. Microsoft reduced its global headcount by about 7%, with cuts concentrating in product-facing engineering-heavy roles. Amazon laid off almost 30,000 people, with cuts focused not just on logistics, but on Alexa and internal cloud tools, precisely the kinds of projects that would have once been qualified as immediately deductible R&D. So in its 2023 annual report, Meta described salaries as its single largest R&D expense. When R&D became more expensive to write off headcount, the leading R&D expense across the tech industry was the biggest thing to cut. So bottom line here, software developer salaries are the largest component of R&D expenses. So going into effect, so there's a big, broader economic devastation, right? And this hit at the same time with a cruel irony that there was this this sharp increase in interest rates. So it all became more expensive. Now, how does this bill, the HR1 or the one big beautiful bill, now come into a case, right? And how is this going to address? So immediately, you could expense the immediate expensing was restored as part of the bill. The bill suspends Section 174 amortization requirements for domestic R&D expenses, allowing companies to fully deduct domestic research costs in the year they incurred. It also allows a retroactive relief. Small businesses with average annual gross receipts of $31 million or less can apply this change retroactively to tax years beginning after December 31st, 2021, meaning they can get relief from the painful 2022 through 2024 period. The acceleration options, right? All taxpayers can elect to accelerate remaining deductions from 2022 to 2024 periods over a 1 to 2 year time frame. So if they've already amortized some of those, they can actually accelerate them now. So software development is included, right? The bill specifically treats software development costs as eligible R&D tax expenditures, right? So now some limitations here. This only runs from 2025 to 2029, and then it reverts back to forcing the amortization. So in essence, this kicks the can down the road. So this could become a problem in 2030 again. And the biggest thing we can do about this is talk about it and make sure that our elected officials know that we want this changed. Also, foreign R&D is still penalized, right? So foreign research expenses have to be amortized over the 15 years, whereas U.S. R&D still can be the immediate same year. Also, there's a limited retroactive relief. Only small businesses get a full retroactive relief to this, right? It's only for the small businesses, not the large businesses, to get the retroactive. Now, larger companies can still start this moving forward, but they can't going backwards. So the Senate bill, the House and Senate bill here, so we're going to see what if the House ratifies this, but the Senate bill addresses about 70 to 80% of the Section 174 problems. Now, if the feds would just quit playing God and would cut interest rates, we could see a strong job economy coming back. Here's where we stand. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act actually tackles some of the real problem, that the hidden section of 174 disaster that made hiring software developers a tax nightmare for the past 3 years. So while it's not a perfect fix and it only runs until 2029, it's the first piece of legislation that acknowledges what I've been saying for a while. There's been a lot of pain over this, right? So now if the Feds would stop playing God with interest rates and finally give us just even a little bit of relief or breathing room, my prediction is that we'll see an exploding need for developers who actually understand RAG, LLMs, and machine learning implementation, i.e. AI, and we're going to go back to seeing software developer economy come roaring back. It's not AI that's taking jobs. It's been the high interest rates and these tax code changes that have been killing our software development companies. Companies have been sitting on the sideline for 3 years watching their competitors struggle with the same tax headaches and hiring freezes. But when you combine tax relief with the reality that every business now needs tech talent who can actually build these AI systems, not just prompt engineers, but actually really build them, you're going to see an explosion in job growth. That's my prediction. So we're seeing the first half of it. First half of the dominoes fall. Now we just need to see Feds cut rates, even a little bit. So I've seen these cycles before, but this starts to feel a little bit different. And I'm optimistic that they'll finally see the wisdom of this and we'll finally see Feds cut rates. I'm really hopeful for July that we can see some rates get cut. I think that will start to relieve some of this pressure. I think we'll see some other things. Now, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I love to have a great discussion. So make sure you like and subscribe and make sure you leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. Here at StartupHakk, we love to train software developers and our licensed coding boot camps, as well as to build custom software solutions for companies. So leave a comment down below. If nothing else, just say hi and check out startuphakk.com/Spencer and here's some great information about these services.
Hi, my name is Spencer Thomason and I'm a fractional CTO. With over a decade of executive leadership and a solid 25 years in software development, I've mastered the art of transforming technology teams and products. So what is a fractional CTO? This is where you can contract someone like myself to come into your organization and get the benefits of a seasoned CTO without having to employ me full time. In today's fast-paced world, efficiency, security, and product scaling aren't just goals, they're necessities. My passion is building impactful products and enhancing organizational efficiencies through technology. From startups to small businesses, my approach leverages lean methodologies to not just meet but exceed your strategic goals. Whether it's through executive mentoring, cloud system architecture, or launching a minimum viable product swiftly, my aim is to make a significant impact right from the start. Recognized in the Arizona startup ecosystem, my journey has been about creating value and fostering innovation. I have led technology for companies like GoDaddy, SRP, and Wells Fargo and turned challenges into milestones. I've taken this learning and launched 7 of my own brands, and now I want to help you. So if you're looking for a fractional CTO who brings a wealth of experience, strategic vision, and a proven track record, let's connect. Together we can build technology that not only drives your business forward, but also makes a difference. Technology leadership redefined to fit your needs. So reach out today.